some 220,000 China-born Chinese to become citizens. That's almost 250,000 at a time when Singapore's population was over 1 million, 1.2 million, and 250,000 of them became citizens, China-born Chinese. And I think it is for this reason, his ability to get this citizenship, that makes Marshall such a fond figure and loved by the Chinese Chamber of Commerce. And what I always found strange was that Marshall was talk of the Chinese. He really wasn't that close to the Chinese, but the Chinese loved him, because he produced citizenship. And when in later years, he would hop in a taxi, and the taxi man would not take money from him. He had a lot of free taxi rides because he was David Marshall. Now, let me talk of Marshall as loyal opposition. Marshall as loyal opposition took two forms. He started an opposition party, and he became an opposition party politician. But there was also times when he had no party affiliation, and he became an independent voice speaking on crucial issues. Hence, his reputation as a Democrat, as a man who stands up to authority. And I think he had far greater impact in the second role as an independent voice than he did as an opposition party member. Well, after he resigned his chief ministership, he remained in the Labour front but spoke out on issues. He fought his own party, and he showed an abiding concern for the abuse of power, the temptation to resort to arbitrary arrests under PPSO, and the banishment ordinance. He opposed Lim Yew Hock's London Agreement for self-government. He said, why are you accepting this? This is self-government, not independence. And in fact, he challenged Lee Kuan Yew, who was part of this mission, because Lee Kuan Yew and the PAP accepted these terms to a by-election. He would stand in Cane Hill, Lee Kuan Yew would stand in Tanjong Pagar. In the end, Lee Kuan Yew stood in Cane Hill, and he had to, in Tanjong Pagar, because he wanted to demonstrate to the radicals in his own party that he was not a sellout, and he did the right thing in accepting the terms. Marshall, in the end, did not stand in Cane Hill because he was told initially by some trade unionists the radical wing, who wanted the radical terms, they went up to him and said, Marshall, we will support you. So he was going to run for Cane Hill. Then they deserted him. So he did not run in Cane Hill in the end and withdrew from the contest. Now later, David Marshall formed the Workers' Party. This was in November 1957. But I would say his experience as an opposition party person was not good. His experience was quite bad, in fact. Initially, the Workers' Party was successful in the city council elections, winning 2 out of 3 seats. Unknown to Marshall, this was because he received communist support. It went temporarily to his party. When the Communist United Front was angry with the moderate wing of the PAP, they would desert them and support Workers' Party. And that was when Workers' Party would win the elections. It went, and so the support for the Workers' Party was like a yo-yo. It depended on whether he received that support. Now, it went up, as I said, when the communists chose to support him, and came down when they withdrew support. This happened in the 1959 Kallang by-election. He won the city council municipal elections first. He had the support. Then in the by-election, he lost the support, and his party collected a few hundred votes. The PAP won that election. But this problem of not knowing who was really behind him in the Workers' Party dogged Marshall for years. And the People's Action Party never blamed him. They felt that he really didn't know this was happening. And in 1961, he won in Anson with Communist and United Front help unknown to him. And he became the Workers' Party assemblyman from Anson. Later, when I spoke to him, he said, Heng Chi, at that time, I didn't know, but I did wonder why my workers were working so hard right in the middle of the night, painting the hammer, across the macadam of the road in Anson. And this was the Communist Front supporters. So, in his experience, I would say, in the Workers' Party was not great. Now, in 1960, in the debate over merger, Marshall found to his embarrassment that when he was taking one position, his party was taking another, because when he was speaking in English, he said what he wanted to say. But his Chinese party, who then stood up and translated him, said something else. And he wouldn't believe it, and one day Rajaratnam kept saying this, that Workers' Party speaks with, two voices. And he challenged Mr. Rajaratnam on this, and Rajaratnam played him back the tapes of the merger debate, and then he discovered that the Workers' Party had in fact, done something quite underhand behind it. So he resigned from the Workers' Party in January of 1963. He ran as an independent in Anson again, and he was alone then. There were 6 candidates who contested the seat. The PAP won the seat with 3,900 over votes. Barisan Sosialis lost narrowly and had 3,123 votes. Marshall received 416 votes and forfeited his deposit. It's coming to the end, don't worry. During this debate on the merger with Malaysia, it is true that Marshall did table this idea of an independent Singapore, that, Singapore could be independent, but he said, we would be a country that could be independent without military bases under the protection of the UN as a UN territory. So it's not exactly independent Singapore, but as a UN protected territory. And that was the idea he had. After his brush with the Workers' Party and after he left the Workers' Party, he became an independent voice. And from 1965, he had to adjust to an independent Singapore. The PAP government took on a survival mentality, became action-oriented, development-driven, and moved to shape the island. The